The railways of Austria provide the enthusiast with an outstanding choice of steam locomotives in scenic settings, and there's nothing like blue sky, sunshine and deep snow to show them off at their best. This preserved Kriegslok, a former German wartime engine of Class 52, is making a brief service stop while en route from Vienna to Graz. It will take over a tour train from Munich, organised by the German company IGE Bahntouristik in 2005. The deep snowdrift in Zuschlag depot does not deter the crew from the Brenner & Brenner company, private owner of the loco, from keeping their machine in perfect condition. "1227 was built at the height of the German war effort in 1943 by the Deutsche Maschinengesellschaft in Breslau, Silesia, in territory that now belongs to Poland. The locomotive is booked to haul a tour of the southern province of Steiermark, visiting 3 independent railways, 1 standard gauge and 2 narrow. First stop on the schedule is Weiz, starting point for the 76 cm gauge Feistritztal to Birkfeld, marked in green in the centre of this map. At first light on a cold February morning, the 52 climbs to Lasnitz, the first of several summits on an undulating single-track line that runs to the Hungarian border and forms a secondary route to Budapest. While the Kriegslok makes its way to Gleisdorf before reversing up the branch to Weiz, we preview the narrow gauge locomotives being prepared for the IGE excursion. The loco shed at Weiz belongs to the Steinmärkische Landesbahnen, the Steiermark provincial railways, who keep narrow gauge diesels here for goods traffic. But it's also used by the U44 Club, who own the steam locomotives and maintain them for tourist service. Long-term resident here is KH101, a hefty O10O tank built in 1926 to haul heavy log trains. The second loco for the tour is ex-Yugoslavia Railways Class 83 062 number 180, rescued and brought to the Feistritztal by the U44 Club. She came from the Bosnian system based on Sarajevo and used to run right through to Belgrade in Serbia, hence the Cyrillic script on the side. Coal 3 tons, water 7 cubic meters. The design originated in Austria in 1904, when Bosnia was part of the Habsburg Empire. As the plate shows, construction was later taken up locally, the type being built over a period totaling 45 years. On this freezing February morning, the water pipes from the tender to the locomotive have iced up, so the direct remedy is adopted of thawing them out with a gas torch. Hopefully the ice is only in the flexible part of the pipe. Number 180 heads off to the station to couple up to its narrow gauge train. trip to Birkfeld is only 24 kilometres, less than a tenth of the long haul through the Bosnian mountains that she was used to, though, as we shall see, what the Feistritztal lacks in length, it certainly makes up for in scenic variety. The pilot engine is to be number 101, and as she backs down onto the train, one can clearly see the unusual wheel arrangement of this 10-coupled loco. The first 8 driving wheels have inside frames, but the rear pair has outside frames to accommodate the clean Lindner radial axle, enabling the loco to negotiate sharp curves. Meanwhile, our Kriegslok has reversed at the junction of Gleisdorf and now heads tender first up the steep bank to the branch terminus at Weiz, bringing a full trainload of passengers for the narrow gauge. While everyone on board changes trains, R52 is uncoupled in order to run round its coaches. But first of all, it has to wait at the flat crossing for the narrow gauge departure, a perfect opportunity for our camera to capture locos of both gauges together. The line was opened in December 1911 and comprised many viaducts, the largest of which was this one at Grub, 7.8 kilometres from Weiz. It's 276 metres long. The level crossing on the winding main road from Weiz is fully protected by red traffic signals, as daily freight service still operates on this part of the line. Shortly after the halt at Oberfeistritz, operation by the Steiermarkische Landesbahn now ceases, and the rest of the line to Birkfeld is leased and maintained by the U44 Club and its support company. Before Anger, the landscape flattens out and the train passes vineyards blanketed in snow. Anger station, 14 kilometres from Weiz, has been restored by the U44 Club, who also maintain the water supply for replenishing the steam locos. This is the main intermediate stop en route to Birkfeld. KH101 was originally supplied to Unsmarkt on the Murtalbahn and still bears its original number plate with Murtal lettering. '101 came to Weiz in 1943, where its greater hauling power was needed for local coal traffic, and stayed there until steam ended in the mid-60s. The loco was then moved to Kapfenberg, but in 1973 returned to the Feistritztal, which is now its permanent home. The engines are now ready to pick up their train and head off for the last 10 kilometres to Birkfeld. In the Feistritztal gorge, our train clings to the hillside in a scene reminiscent of the Yugoslav locos' old stamping ground in Bosnia's Drina Valley. "24 kilometres from Weiz is Birkfeld, an attractive small town where the line now terminates. It originally ran a further 16 kilometres to Ratten, but that section closed in the 60s. The station and depot here form the home base of Club U44, who keep all their stock here. On the right is one of two Class U 062 tanks, now owned by the club and stored pending restoration. One by one, the locos go off down the yard to be serviced, creating a busy winter scene of some rarity for a line that normally operates only in the summer. As the 83 buffers up to the rear coach for its tender first return trip, we shall leave Birkfeld and the Feistritztal and head back across country to the city of Graz, capital of the Steiermark province and a major industrial and railway centre. After bringing back the IGE tour train, our Kriegslok is prepared at the Graz depot for the next day's special trips, which will take place on the Graz-Koflach Bahn. The GKB is not part of the Austrian state system, but an independent standard gauge common carrier 91 kilometres in length. It was founded as early as 1854 to serve coal mines and open up the area west of Graz. Our special trains are rostered to run down the Weiz branch to the south, which was opened in 1873. The GKB has its own station in Graz, although passenger trains are now diverted into the State Railway Station in the centre of town. But the GKB building has been preserved and is still in regular use as a freight office. The Gothic lettering dates back to the 19th century and the original owners of the line, the Sudbahn. Steam ended on the Graz-Koflach in 1978, the last locos in use being cascaded Class 52s from the main line. So this is a perfect recreation of a GKB morning mixed in Steam's final years. The Kriegslok were of course designed for hard work on heavy freight, so it's always a pleasant surprise to be reminded how sprightly these versatile machines can be when driven on short cut-off with a light load. A passing steam train blends perfectly with a typical wooden country station, adding to the period atmosphere. Wood still remains the staple traffic for the Weiz branch freight trains. Near the Slovenian border now, historic Landsberg was a southern bastion of German-speaking people. The Habsburgs renamed it Deutschlandsberg, reflecting its culture and later, for 7 fateful years, 1938 to 45, its ownership too. And now, the pièce de résistance, a special appearance by number 671, a 29 class 060 dating back to the 19th century, when the GKB was owned by the Südbahn. The loco is being serviced at the Weiz terminus in connection with IGE's second special train of the day. Designed in Vienna by a Briton, John Caswell, the 29s were introduced in 1860, and their main job was to haul freight over the Semmering Pass. They were a great success, and a total of 217 were built. Some lasted for over 100 years, ending their days shunting on the Graz-Koflach. Number 671 was the last survivor. Officially on standby since the end of steam, she has never actually been withdrawn and still remains on the GKB's books. The old girl is hugely popular with railway lovers and was a natural choice for IGE's winter tour. Driver Johann Hofer, head of the GKB steam team, kindly invited us aboard his ancient machine to observe at close quarters the Stephenson valve gear, which was used on many Austrian locos until the late 19th century. The veteran 060 galloped along through snow-clad villages, no doubt causing a few curtains to twitch on this peaceful winter Sunday. Deutschlandsberg again, where the old girl gamely took on the challenge of the steep grade, recalling her younger days slogging up the Semmering Pass over a century ago. At the Weiz terminus, number 671 has to move a rake of wagons, blocking her way to the loco shed. This was a perfect reenactment of her decades of service as a shunting engine at the Koflach coal mines. The red ex-Deutsche Bundesbahn rail cars used on local passenger trains have been temporarily moved out of their usual home in the locomotive depot to make way for number 671. After 4 decades of diesel fumes, the wooden rafters are once again treated with good old-fashioned soot. Built in 1873, the shed at Weiz is one of the oldest GKB structures still in use, though 671 still beats it by 13 years. The crew carefully lubricate the motion, also the eccentrics of the Stephenson valve gear, which are mounted outside the driving wheels, an arrangement that was still common practice in the 1860s. Fortunately, the turntable at Weiz remains usable, sometimes required by maintenance vehicles and railcar units. So our veteran can return to Graz chimney first, although tender first running was quite normal in her service life. The 51-kilometre run from Graz had taxed the old lady more than somewhat, and before returning home she had to have a large amount of ash removed from the smoke box. The white deposit at the base of the chimney is the residue of chemical treatment of the water, normally carried away by the smoke, but in this case condensing on contact with the cold winter air and solidifying on the chimney's immaculate paintwork. Fortunately, it has not affected the steam-powered electric light generator mounted alongside. The fireman has to be careful of burning cinders still lodged in the baffle plate of the smoke box door on the left. The labour-intensive job of servicing an engine between duties is well demonstrated here. The classic baker's oven style doors are now closed and all the ash swept off the buffer beam. This old-fashioned style of double smoke box doors instead of a single round one was retained in Austria longer than anywhere else in Europe, lasting up until the First World War and into the 1920s. A truly outstanding example of heritage steam preservation, number 671 is a tribute to the Steirische Eisenbahnfreunde who helped in restoring and running the GKB's steam locos. The world's oldest steam engine in service now confidently steams towards her 150th birthday in 2010. Book your tickets now. Leaving the Graz-Koflach, we now rejoin the IGE 2005 special train, which takes us into western Steiermark, and shows us another aspect of the versatile Kriegslok. Designed to cope with adverse conditions on the Eastern Front, the tender windows were ideal for fast running in reverse on a freezing February day. Our final destination is another part of the Steiermark provincial network, the Murtalbahn from Unzmark to Tamsweg. At 65 kilometres, it's Austria's second longest narrow gauge line. At Unzmark Junction, we say farewell to our immaculate Kriegslok and prepare for another full day on the narrow gauge. With a whistle and a flourish, the two locos for the tour now arrive in style with empty stock from the depot at Murau, 27 kilometres up the line. A commercial common carrier with both passenger and freight, the railway maintains a small diesel fleet for daily operations on this 76 centimetre gauge line, and this is its oldest and smallest, an 040 shunter built by Ornstein and Koppel in 1959. With the passenger rake pulled clear, the steam locos head off for the coal dock to be serviced. Number U11 is the oldest of the line's preserved engines, built in 1894. She's an Austrian narrow gauge classic design, a saturated steam 062 tank. With huge modern headboards, the Steiermark administration is determined we shall not forget whose line this is. Fortunately though, U11 still carries an elegant brass crest of the province in the original style. The locomotive is named Mautendorf after the line's original terminus 11 kilometres beyond the present one at Tamsweg. Like most of Austria's small locos, U11 was built by Krauss at Linz by the Danube, as the plate records. Supplying a loco with coal is done the traditional Austrian way, in large wicker baskets. It may be labour-intensive, but at least it stops the paintwork getting scratched. U11 has no bunker. The coal is just dumped on the floor. Keeping the cab clean would seem a greater art than driving itself. The second loco on our special, number BH1, is also a classic Krauss design, but built 11 years later in 1905, by which time superheating had been introduced. All servicing complete, it was time for the two veterans to couple up to the coaches and head off to Tamsweg with their trainload of admirers. After 10 kilometres on the flat, the train starts to climb the Moor Valley. Steam seldom ventures onto this section nowadays, the seasonal tourist trains operating at the western end only. With the snow-capped peak of the Kammersberg in the distance, the line soon levels out on the approach to Murau, the principal town en route. Murau is a picturesque country town, well worth a visit and popular with tourists. Our train makes a lunch stop here, the station itself having now been restored as a restaurant. The railway has its headquarters and depot here too. Modern rail cars provide a full passenger service on the line with 8 trains a day each way. Emerging from a short tunnel outside Murau, the steam train heads off for the afternoon run to Tamsweg, a distance of 38 kilometres. The train skirts the River Moor for the last time at Ramingstein, and then swings northwards, leaving Steiermark to enter Salzburg province before reaching the terminus at Tamsweg. Happily, the Murtalbahn operates these locos every summer and keeps the memory of steam alive on a regular basis. But winter steaming is unusual, especially on the whole line, and well worth a special journey to see.